Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Radhanath Radha Radhanath Radhe. Jaya Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Gaura Hari, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Radha Madhava ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Some invocation mantras. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhur Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Chinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Again, thank you for attending today's morning class. Today we'll be speaking from the Transcendental Diaries by His Grace Harisauri Prabhu, and we are now on Volume 3, Chapter 1. The date is June 27th of 1976. Before I go into this, please accept my humble obeisances and all glory to Srila Prabhupada. I am very, very underqualified to speak, but I will try to give you something of value today. So I'll read a bit from the diary and then I'll try to explain each part. Prabhupada in one day goes through many different topics and subtopics, and it's all very exciting, but it's also hard to follow sometimes, but we'll try. So the diary entry starts off like this. Srila Prabhupada felt a little better this morning and went on his walk. The devotees drove him to a more open stretch of countryside rather than return to the dark vale we first visited. He walked on an easy gait, accompanied by a small handful of devotees. He spoke only intermittently, strolling along with a quiet serenity. Srila Prabhupada has a wonderfully aristocratic bearing, erect stature, upwardly tilted head, cane firmly wielded, his hand clasping the silver handle with the forefinger extended, sharp eyes, penetrating and clear. Yet at the same time, he is completely approachable and never aloof from his surroundings and his followers. He has weight. He is a presence one cannot ignore. Even when he is silent, you know he has a lot to say. And when he does speak, he reveals a wealth of information. As he told us in Bombay, a devotee is expert, which means that he knows everything about something and something about everything. Srila Prabhupada is certainly the most expert. You know, in the more recent times, when you start off in Krishna consciousness, you appreciate Srila Prabhupada for his spiritual knowledge and all of that. Then as time goes on, and you keep meditating on Prabhupada, and sometimes we kind of overlook his material qualifications, his material achievements. That Prabhupada at his age and his mission, although he accomplished what he wanted to do on the order of his spiritual master, but there was also these many side activities, you could say, that he accomplished that no ordinary person can accomplish. If you think about it, he established 108 temples around the world. Yes, that's great for spiritual life. But, he built these temples. Maybe not physically, but he accomplished something. He built a business, which is ISKCON. Right? At least this business is not so much about wealth, but it's about spiritual advancement. He's got so many followers. He spoke with so many graduates, PhD candidates. He spoke with so many scientists. No ordinary person really does that. If you want to have an audience with, somebody from university, they'll be like, okay, so what are you studying? Like, well, I'm not studying anything. Well, don't waste my time. But Prabhupada sat with these people, had discussions that an ordinary person does not have. So Prabhupada did so many things around the world. I mean, ISKCON has, although it's donation-based, but it generates so much of income through donations and just kindness. And compared to some businesses that, erect and then fail, this is still going on and on and on, based on the kindness and generosity of the people. So Prabhupada was expert at all of these things, even medicine. Before he came to the West, he had this pharmaceutical company. He was expert in all of these medicines. He knew this, he knew that, he knew everything. He knows everything about something and something about everything. And even when we engage with the public, and we're going to be going on book distribution and Harinam now, this is Book Marathon Month, sometimes people will want to engage with you, and they may talk something slightly different just to see whether you are just a totally spiritual person or whether you are actually, down to earth as well. And they're going to start engaging with you, and you need to be able to respond in an appropriate way. So in this way, we need to be expert. We need to know something about everything and everything about something. But Prabhupada's main focus was always spiritual life. He didn't deviate from that. Yes, he may know the knowledge, but it's always to support the spiritual part of it. So this is Srila Prabhupada, who is the most expert. And then we continue in the Diaries, part 1 of 4. So I've got it here into 4 parts. So this part focuses on the vastness of the Vedas. So it says here, as he sauntered along the road, he noticed of some patches of herbs growing along the side. There is a class of men, they are called the Vedyas. They know all these herbs, which herb is medicine for certain disease, and they sell in the market. Every one of these is meant for some medicine. They know it. I asked if that kind of information was in the Vedas. Prabhupada said, Ayurveda. There is a book, the Dravya Guna, all kinds of herbs, metals, even different kinds of flesh of different animals, they are mentioned. Hundreds of different kinds of animals' flesh. How it can be utilized for certain disease, the descriptions are there. This was a little surprising to me. They're using flesh for curing diseases? Yes, Prabhupada said matter-of-factly, adding, animal killing is only allowed when it is absolutely necessary for medicine. Suppose by killing one animal, hundreds of lives are saved. So that is allowed. One preparation is called chagalagda grita. A live goat is put into the ghee with other ingredients, and that is good medicine for tuberculosis. Pushta Krishna was also a bit incredulous. They actually cook the live goat in the ghee. Maybe we should withhold the science from the Western world for a while, he said half-jokingly. So of course we know that animal sacrifice, we do not practice this amongst ourselves. But this sort of thing is found in different parts of the Vedas for different class of people. And it is only allowed unless absolutely necessary. It's more of a last resort. When every other thing is not working, then we try, or we not try, at least if it is recommended that we do some animal killing, then we do so. But as far as possible, we try not to. So different circumstances allows for it, but of course there is a cost. Just as there is a part of the Vedas in which if a person wants to eat meat, you cannot just go and kill whenever and cook how much you want and so on and serve whoever. There are certain restrictions and guidelines to do it. There's a certain time period you can do it. You have to have the priest available. You have to actually recite a mantra into the animal that you're about to slaughter. And the mantra, the rough translation is that, my dear animal, I am now taking your life. In the next lifetime, you may take my life. Very rough translation. So this kind of process is actually meant to take us away from this animal killing. We're not really meant to kill animals. It's only as a very, very last resort. So for those who have taste for meat, we try to move away. All of these guidelines try to take us away from it. Then you get some class of people who, although it is mentioned in the Vedas as well, hey, in the Vedas it says we can eat meat, we can do this, we can do that. And so you get some class of people who actually exploit this part of the Vedas. They say, well, the Vedas said it, so we can do it. They kind of neglect the guidelines. And there was a time period where there was so much of animal sacrifice going on. It was unbelievable. And just disregarding the Vedas completely. So much so that the Supreme Lord had to come down and sort the situation out. So he comes in the form of Lord Buddha, and he preaches to that particular class of people at that particular time with those circumstances. And he couldn't give pure love of bhakti. These people were so fallen that you cannot preach the highest knowledge. You can only preach very little bit, something to just stop them from doing the animal killing. And so nowadays that sort of practice, you'll find that those class of people practice more of a monk life. They stay away from animal sacrifice, they stay away from eating animals and so on. Because this animal sacrifice, there is sin to it, and only do it when necessary. But of course, as us devotees, we obviously stay away from this. It's part of our four regulative principles. And more so is that we do not eat meat because it supports the pillar of dharma, which is mercy. So we support this pillar of dharma, which is mercy. And mercy means not only to not eat meat, but also to care for all the living entities of the world. You'll find that there is a pastime with Narad Muni and Mrigari. You may have heard of this, you may have not. So Mrigari was a hunter, but he was taught in his life that when you hunt, you don't kill the animal, you leave it half dead, which is actually considered more horrendous than actually killing the animal. You'd rather just put it out of its misery. But to leave it half dead is more torturous to that animal. So one day Narad Muni appeared and he saw all these animals just lying on the ground, all practically half dead, bleeding. And so he tried to find who was doing this. And so he stumbled across Mrigari. And he asked him, "My dear Mrigari, what are you doing?" And he says, "No, I'm hunting animals." And then Narad Muni says, "But the animal is, still alive. It is still bleeding. It is still suffering." And then Mrigari says, "Yes, well, that is what I was taught." And so Narad Muni could not accept this. And of course, he preached some Vedic wisdom to Mrigari. So much so that Mrigari took it to heart that what I'm doing is so sinful, I should stop it completely. And Mrigari started practicing spiritual life. He started practicing God consciousness. And he stopped this killing of animals. And some time passed, Mrigari got married and so on, and he was a devotee. And Narad Muni came to visit him. And Mrigari saw Narad Muni in the distance, his spiritual master, and he got so excited. He ran towards him. But along the path, there was ants on the floor. Now Mrigari was conscious of this, and as he was moving towards Narad Muni, he was actually very carefully avoiding these ants, so as not trample them and kill them. So you can see that the association of a saintly person like Narad Muni can change the consciousness of a person into spiritual consciousness. That's so much so you become conscious of how you walk, of all the living entities around you. Your care, your kindness, your caring nature comes out. So this is what we are practicing, devotees. We already know not to kill animals, but even so to take it to even higher. Sometimes the mosquitoes are coming out, the cockroaches are coming out in our house. We don't know whether to get the doom, but then something inside tells us, well, we shouldn't be killing this. So you take the broom, you try to sweep it out. So it's a bit stressful, but we should keep this in mind. There are other ways of dealing with the situation. Death is not the first option. So we'll continue here. Prabhupada grinned. "No, you are expert already." I asked if it was done in the same mood as Vedic animal sacrifices, where mantras were chanted to give new life to the animal. Prabhupada shook his head. He said animals were sacrificed and reborn to test the potency of the mantra. But in this case, the animal was used for medicine. Shamakunda Das mentioned a book he had recently read, wherein the author said that old cows with no milk and rotten teeth should be slaughtered as a matter of economy, rather than waste their flesh. Prabhupada had a suggestion of his own for the author. When he'll die, who will take his meat? That is also economical. Why don't you give it to the animal eaters instead of wasting it? Why they bury in the ground? Why? Let it be thrown to be eaten by the jackals or anybody else. Srila Prabhupada argued that when a man is dead, they should make the same economic calculation, because after all, when they are dead, there is no difference in value between an animal's body and a man's body. We suggested it would be too horrifying for them to contemplate that they may start eating each other, their own grandmother, or even their family dog. But if it was wrapped up in a package and they didn't know it was the dog or their mother, they could probably eat it, Shamakunda said. Yes, Prabhupada agreed. They can eat by packing. It reminded me of an incident from my childhood. When I related it, Srila Prabhupada stopped for a moment to listen. They eat their pets sometimes. I used to have a pet rabbit, and one day I came home from school and my father had killed it and eaten it for dinner. The devotees shook their heads and laughed. He said I wasn't looking after it properly, so Prabhupada pulled a face and walked on. He didn't want to hear. Chant Hare Krishna. So this is the progress of Kali Yuga, and this is what it has led to, these horrendous acts. And as time progresses, it is actually described in Srimad Bhagavatam that you may think now what you see around you is bad. It's going to get worse, much, much worse. And there's almost about 427,000 years more to go. How much worse can it get? To a point where the Lord has to come down again and sort the problem. So he'll come as Lord Kalki. So the people of this world are very fallen, very ignorant, and this time makes it doesn't help the situation. It's going to get worse. So it is our duty to actually go out and preach to people about God consciousness, about being kind and caring to others. So it is our opportunity in this month to do that. So killing for the economy means no regard for life, only money. These people are so fallen that they do not care that they have to take a life, as long as it benefits the economic situation, like, oh yeah, okay, this guy or this person is dead or this animal is dead. It's dead, it's gone. But I'm going to be alive, so I need to sort my problem out. This is causing a problem for me. So we don't think like that. We do not think like that. That's the ignorant way of thinking. It's actually, it shows a lack of respect for living creatures, for living beings, and that's not who we are. That is not who we are. Yeah, it may cause some problems for you. It's not the only thing causing a problem for you. So show it some respect. It has served you in some way. The cow has served you for its life. It has given milk. And what is your reciprocation? The mundane person wants to take the life. But you should care for that cow. It is looking to you for that caring and nature because it has served you for so long. It is expecting at least something in return. So if we are people of compassion, we will do this. And then when I think it's Harisari Prabhu related the pastime of his rabbit. So Prabhupada immediately just didn't want to hear it, just said chant Hare Krishna. Because this kind of talk is actually, it's not really satisfying to the senses firstly. It's an act of ignorance, and this kind of affects the consciousness of the person. So Prabhupada doesn't really want to hear it. It affects your consciousness. And immediately he says chant Hare Krishna to re-establish that good consciousness. The only time we want to hear it is if it's in relation to Krishna. Yes, people may say, yes, Bhagavatam is talking about all these horrendous acts. Why should we talk about it? It's in relation to Krishna. It is giving you the picture that you do not belong here. If you think this is bad, it's going to get worse. You need to get out. By just relating a simple pastime, if it doesn't have any relation to Krishna, don't talk about it. This is actually, you could consider it as prajalpa. You know, this just mundane talk. You're not going anywhere with it. The next part I'll talk about is focusing more on accepting a genuine guru and God. Prabhupada initiated the discussion by asking the devotees a question. If you go somewhere, you must know first of all why you have gone there. That is the first question. If you go to a store, the first business is that you have gone to purchase some particular thing from the store. That is understood. Similarly, why should one go to a spiritual master? What is the purpose? Answer any one of you. That set the tone for much of the next 2 hours. Prabhupada encouraged the devotees to examine the fundamental principle of spiritual life, one's relationship with the spiritual master. Drishtayumna Maharaj immediately provided the answer he was looking for. When one is confused and frustrated by this material existence, he wants to find an answer to his problem. So, there are different authorities in the world offering solutions, but one has to find the actual authority. Srila Prabhupada expanded his statement. One has to go to Guru when one is inquisitive. Child also wants to know. He asks his parents, what is this father? What is this mother? That inquisitiveness is there in everyone. So when one wants to know about the Supreme, then he requires a Guru or spiritual master. It is not a fashion that everyone keeps a Guru, let me also have a Guru. Not like that. Tad vigyanartam sa gurum eva bekachat. In order to understand the transcendental science, one has to go to Guru. Just like one generally, naturally goes to temple, church, 4 classes of men. One is needy. Oh God, give us our daily bread. Actually, that is fact. God gives us bread. So traditionally, we are trained up. Similarly, one wants to know what is God. Just like in our society, in Krishna consciousness, they see that these boys, young boys, they have given up everything. They are after Krishna. What is this Krishna? That is intelligent. What they are after, this Krishna. Then he has to go to a person, Guru. In this way, there are many circumstances, but the real purpose is to know the Supreme. So Srila Prabhupada here mentions that if you are looking for something, go to the authority. In spiritual life, you have to go to authority. You cannot, there are some people who claim that I am speaking to God already. From within my heart, I'm having a conversation. God is telling me to do this, and God is telling me to do that. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. And so in this way, they are saying that I've spoken to God, I have seen God, and so on. But what is the actual spiritual authority on this matter? So there are 3 spiritual authorities we all know, is Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So your Guru is your initiating Guru, your bona fide Guru. The Sadhus are the very elevated personalities around us that also guide us. And the Vedas is the Vedic literature. Now, why do we need a Guru when we have Vedas? Vedas sets the standard for practically all time. But the Guru is more on a personal level. Each one of us has different personalities, have different problems and so on that we are coming with. And so the Guru tackles that particular thing. Instead of giving you all the Vedas, which will take you lifetimes to read and understand, he gives you what you need. And he guides you in this way. So Srila Prabhupada explains that we should approach a bona fide Guru for the purpose of seeking spiritual knowledge. So when you are seeking a spiritual master, don't just do it because my friend has a Guru and my neighbor has a Guru and everyone's got a Guru, so I need to follow this trend. This is not a trend. Spiritual life is very serious. It requires a mature state of a person to find that personality who is so expert in spiritual life that they are able to guide me because I am so fallen. That is the purpose. And when you become serious and mature, start seeking out a spiritual master, because through them you will receive spiritual knowledge and you will receive Krishna. So of course, choose a spiritual master for the right purposes. We also find that sometimes in our immature state, we may see a spiritual master, but we are attracted to that personality not by their spiritual aspect, but the spiritual master gives a very nice class. It's very exciting, very exhilarating. He uses PowerPoint, he uses this. Or some may seek a spiritual master, he sings very nicely, or she sings very nicely, or they dance very nicely. Those are the not exactly the spiritual requirement. Those are just external, and in some ways it's material. That's not why we should be attracted to them. We attracted to them because they inspire us to pursue spiritual life. They give us that enthusiasm that we need. That is what we should be looking for, not for name, fame, and glory. So I'll continue here. So if one is looking for a Guru, to which the Yamuna Swami asked, but there are many people, they are proclaiming themselves Guru, and they are speaking Supreme God. How may one tell the actual Guru? Prabhupada firmly condemned both those who declare themselves to be God, as well as those who believe them. A person should know what he is looking for in order to avoid being cheated. He gave a simple practical test by which any layman could expose a rogue. If one accepts some cheap God, that means he has no understanding about God. He's a rascal. If I say I'm God and somebody accepts me as God, then he's a foolish man. They do not know what is meaning of God. If one wants God, he must know at least what is meant by God. Every scripture, just like in Bible it is said, God has created this universe. So if you come to me and accept me as God, why don't you test whether I have created another universe like this? Why you accept a cheap God who hasn't done anything? Simply he's a bluff, and he says that I am God. Everything requires intelligence. If you're not intelligent, then in every transaction you may be cheated. Everyone has heard God is great. So great means there should be nobody equal to him and nobody greater than him. So test that man whether he has no competitor, another God. Nowadays there are so many gods. So God is great. Why is there another competitor? This is intelligence. So the aspect of God, it's, people don't really give the full definition of what God is. God is an all-powerful being. Omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. I mean, these are qualities that no ordinary person can do. And you find nowadays people do not apply their intelligence. It's not to say that they are not so much intelligent. They don't apply their intelligence. They just get bewildered by some, amazing accomplishment. Somebody can score, 1,000 goals in their career in soccer, and they are now worshipped as God because nobody else has done that. But that's not so great. It's not that great. When we're talking about great, we're talking about creating a universe. Now that is something you don't see. It's not something you can even imagine. That is the position of God. It should not be so limited that I can understand it. Krishna's potencies are beyond our material understanding. We will not be able to grasp many of the things he does. That is God. God has no competitor. People say, I have God, and then the next person says, I have God. How many gods are there? How can you believe in one God and I believe in one God, but we are situated in the same space? There can only be one position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, he may have different names, he may have different qualities and appearances, but there can only be one person taking up that position as God. So, this idea that people say that, I am God and I have a better God, of course, we try to convince them as best as we can. We try to initiate that intelligence that they are not applying, but we try our best. And then, of course, who is the bona fide guru? Now, some gurus out there as well, gurus, claim that they are also God. So, obviously, this is nonsense. A guru will never accept that, will never accept that they are God. If their disciple says, my guru, I think you are God, the guru will chastise them for days on end. So we do not accept this, and the guru will never accept it. The bona fide guru is that person who represents God. Yes, they may have godly qualities, they may have the qualities of God, but they are not God themselves, and they try to impart knowledge just as God is doing. They are doing the work of God. So those of you who are seeking spiritual knowledge should understand these things, should apply your intelligence, and seek out a genuine spiritual master. So of course, if you are a person who is starting this process, you are trying to find the right place, you don't want to get cheated and so on. Some institutions ask for money, but they don't give you anything in return. You don't really get that spiritual knowledge that you are seeking. So obviously you're going to approach institutions, you're going to hear from what the institution has to present, you're going to read their literature, you're going to hear from their representatives, and then you need to decide whether what they are giving, what they are offering is genuine. You'll observe their actions. Are they practicing what they preach? Things like that. So if you're starting that process of, from the very basic, you try that. Right? We're not going to say you just come here and you try it. You want you to decide that, okay, this is the place for me. And once you do that, and once you're convinced by a particular institution, by a particular guru and so on, then you approach the devotees of the institution, you speak with them, you gather some more knowledge, and you try to make advancement towards taking shelter of a spiritual master. Of course, many of us have been practicing in a particular institution for many years, but you find that we are not really committing ourselves. We are always giving excuses. Oh, I will just wait until my economic situation is better. I will wait till my family's or my kids is grown up, and then I will. The material situation is always changing. Yes, you may get what you want. Let's say you are waiting, for example, you are waiting for your kids to grow up and move out, so I have more time for spiritual life. But then what happens when the grandchildren come? Then, oh, I need time for my grandchildren. The material circumstance is always changing. And Mayadevi is always finding ways to take you away from spiritual life. But your spiritual life is a constant. It needs to be a permanent. And so, yes, while the flickering nature of this material world will happen, you keep your spiritual life set. And everything else must, kind of be molded around that. So if you have found your spiritual master, and you are happy, then you try to make some advancement. Don't just wait for a better situation. It's not going to get better. It's getting worse, actually. So those of you who are now within ISKCON, you are at the right place. Don't go anywhere. But now you may have trouble finding a particular guru. There are so many gurus, almost about 100 on the list. So who do I choose now? Who do I choose as my spiritual master? Now, some may be attracted to the guru that they see very often, particularly in this area, now Chatsut area, I can say there's at least 2 local gurus you can say you see very often at the temple. But remember, choose a guru that inspires you, that stands out from other gurus. Don't just choose them because they're local. And I'm not saying yes, choose or not choose. I'm saying if you're really seeking spiritual knowledge, find somebody that inspires you, right? Now, the other thing is that when, I'm also trying to find my spiritual master, and sometimes the thing comes up that, yes, there's about 100 on the list, but that means if I choose one guru, it means I'm neglecting 99 other gurus or so. So does that mean I'm causing offense to the other gurus? No, not really. Not really. It's because that if every guru was the same, if every guru presented the knowledge in the same way, you ask guru number 1, who is God, they'll give you the same perfected answer, apostrophes and tone and everything. And then you go to guru number 2 and they're saying the same thing in the same way. It becomes a bit robotic. Now Krishna is not, he has so much of vastness, and his representatives are vast as well. So you find the person that by their personality and actions, they are able to inspire you a little bit more than the others. All gurus will inspire you in some way, but one particular guru will inspire you a little bit more than the other. It's not to say now, okay, I have my guru and I must not listen to the classes by the other gurus. Your guru will never tell you to do that. Right? They will say, listen to the others. We are all within ISKCON, we are all taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada. So in this way, right, we show respect to all our gurus. Now your guru that you choose, right, of course you will surrender far more to him. You will surrender your entire life to him. And we obviously recited this mantra at the beginning, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances to him. This is the position of the guru in your life. Just because now you have a guru does not mean, okay, I'm set for life. No, he is a guide. He holds the torch to guide you through the darkness of this world. And so you stick very close to him. You listen to his instructions. You make one wrong move, you're going to tramp on some thorns. You're going to get shot in the head. He will guide you very nicely. So stick very, very closely. So the next part here I'll just talk about is the distinction between the devotee and the guru. So at one point, Prabhupada told everyone the story of Narad Muni, the cobbler and the brahmana. Hearing this made one of the men puzzled. Thinking about a statement Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita, he asked Prabhupada to clarify it. In that story, the cobbler actually was more advanced than the brahmana, and yet in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that even the Stri, Shudra, Dvija Bandhu, they can all approach the supreme destination. Then in the next verse he says, how much greater then are the brahmanas, the righteous, the devotees, the saintly kings? I was wondering, how are they greater? I do not understand how they are greater than the lower person who surrenders. So for those of you who do not know the story of the brahmana and the cobbler, I'll give you a very shortened version. So one time Narad Muni was just doing his traveling and so on, and he came across this brahmana. And the brahmana asked Narad Muni, so what are you up to? Where are you going? And so on. And then the brahmana says, the Narad Muni says, no, I'm going to visit the Supreme Lord. And so the brahmana says, okay, you are visiting the Supreme Lord. Can you please ask him something for me? Can you please ask him if I am going back to Godhead, to him at the end of this lifetime? So Narad Muni said, okay, I will go and I will inquire. So Narad Muni goes and visits the Supreme Lord, and they obviously converse and exchange and offer respects and so on. And then Narad Muni says, or asks the Supreme Lord, my dear Lord, I saw this brahmana earlier and he asked me to ask you a question. And he asks, so the brahmana asks, is he going to go back home in this lifetime? So the Supreme Lord, Krishna, says, no, he will not. And then Narad Muni says, well, what can I tell him to convince him that I've visited you, because he may not be happy with this answer? So the Lord says, you tell him that I am stringing an elephant through the eye of a needle. Now, in the real world, it's not very possible. I don't think any of us can take an elephant and string it to the eye of a needle. So Narad Muni said, okay, yes, I will go back and relate this to him. So Narad Muni goes back and he tells the Brahman, well, I've met with the Supreme Lord. And then the Brahmana asks, so what did he say? So the Brahmana, so Narad Muni says, well, he says that you will not go back home in this lifetime. The Brahmana became very upset, very angry. He says, you Narad Muni, you went and visited him. What are you telling me? This cannot be possible. I am practicing for so many years. I've made so many sacrifices and austerities. You are talking nonsense. Tell me something that he is doing so I can believe you. Tell me what he was doing in the spiritual world. So Narad Muni says, well, the Supreme Lord, when I visited him, he was stringing an elephant through the eye of a needle. The Brahman says, what? That is not possible. No ways. You are talking nonsense. I don't even accept that you went and saw the Supreme Lord. So Narad Muni left. Later on, he came across the cobbler. And the cobbler obviously greeted Narad Muni. Now we must understand that between a cobbler and a Brahmana, it is considered by the material situation that a cobbler is lower class than a Brahmana. So the cobbler spoke with Narad Muni and asked Narad Muni what he's up to. Narad Muni says, well, I'm going to visit the Supreme Lord. And then the cobbler asks, okay, can you please ask him something for me? Can you please ask him if I am going to return to the spiritual world at the end of this lifetime? Narad Muni says, okay, I will relate your question. Narad Muni goes back, visits the Supreme Lord, and then he says, my dear Lord, I have met with this cobbler, and he is asking if I will return to the spiritual world, or if he will return to the spiritual world at the end of this life. And the Supreme Lord said, yes, he will. And then Narad Muni then asks, okay, so how can I convince him that I've met you? And then the Supreme Lord says, you tell him that I am stringing an elephant to the eye of a needle. So Narad Muni returns back to the cobbler. The cobbler is excited to see Narad Muni, offers obeisances and says, and asks, well, what did the Supreme Lord say to my question? And then Narad Muni says, yes, he said that you will go back home at the end of this life. And the cobbler was rejoiced, he was excited. And he says, and what was the Supreme Lord doing when you approached him? And Narad Muni says, he was stringing an elephant to the eye of a needle. And the cobbler became even more excited. That is my Supreme Lord. Only he can do that. So this is the nature of exalted persons. It doesn't matter what material situation you are in. It doesn't matter. It is how much of faith and devotion you have in the Supreme Lord. Yes, many of us will say, hey, I have never seen anybody string an elephant through the eye of a needle. I can't even string a piece of string through an eye of a needle sometimes. We're sitting there trying to put that thing through. How is the Supreme Lord doing it? Well, only Krishna can do that. Only Krishna can do that. Some of you may want to argue, but in reality, that's not possible. How can this, massive object fit through the small? How is that possible? Only Krishna can do it. I cannot explain it to you, but that's how he does it. That's his nature. It's beyond our understanding. It's inconceivable. But that is what makes Krishna great. He's not an ordinary God. He is God. He is the Supreme Lord. So I'll continue here. Prabhupada gave him a simple but wonderful comparison. Suppose you have got your spiritual master, and if somebody says that any one of you can come in this car, so spiritual master goes, you also go. Does it mean that the spiritual master is not greater than you? Do you think like that? It was immediately clear to the boy, no. Then, it is the same thing. Suppose Kirtananda Maharaj has brought this car, so he says, all of you can come. So I go, you go. Does it mean that you and your spiritual master are equal? Everyone can go to Godhead. There is no doubt. But still there is difference between Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Sudras. So far going into the car, the equal right is there, but it does not mean that your spiritual master or the next group, they are not greater than you. Don't think like that. The same car, Kirtananda Maharaj is driving. I am also there. You are also there. Does it mean that we are all equal? There must be gradation. The right is given to everyone. It does not mean that immediately they become all one. It is Krishna's mercy that he accepted everyone. Come on. But this distinction is there. We are inviting everyone to partake Krishna Prasad. That does not mean that immediately all of them have become of the equal rank. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was so kind, but still there was distinction. When he was taking prasad, personal associates, they were sitting with him. Is it not? This is called honor. Varieties must be there. Otherwise, we become Mayavadis. Everything is equal, all one. This is Mayavad philosophy. No varieties. There must be variety. That is Vaishnava philosophy. And as soon as you can make it variety less, all equal, that is Mayavad. He offered another beautiful example from the colorful garland he was wearing. Just see, even in this flower, he pointed out the blossom and then the leaf. This is flower and this is also flower. Does it mean they are of the same rank? This is understanding. Together they look very beautiful, but if you take separate value, then it is valuable than this flower. That distinction must be there. If somebody says, I am accepting even the leaf in this garland, then what to speak of rose? It is like that. Krishna says, that does not mean leaf and rose have the same value. One is making a beautiful garland. I am accepting everything. Mixed together, it looks very nice. But individually, the leaf has value. The rose has value. The flower has value. Not that because they are put together, they have equal value. This is Vaishnava philosophy. So again, if you take my garland, for example, there's leaves, there's different flowers, different colors and so on. And one may say that yes, the flower is more valuable than the leaf because the flower has scent, the flower has color, the leaf is just boring. But together they are serving the same purpose. They are one in the same purpose. They are preaching Krishna consciousness. They are serving. Although within that service attitude, there are different class of people. One has to lead, one has to follow. But even the leader also has his leader. He has his spiritual master. And all are serving the purpose of Lord Krishna. So that is there. Just like this Vyasa Sang. When I was reading this earlier, I'm thinking, I'm sitting on this Vyasa Sang. There are many other senior devotees that have sat on this Vyasa Sang. I am not even a fraction close to where they are. But does it mean that I'm equal to them? No ways at all. However, the purpose is the same. That person is preaching Krishna consciousness, and I'm trying to do the same. So the purpose is one, but there is variety, there is gradation, there is a leader and a follower. And as devotees, we are trying to be followers. We are trying to be good servants of our spiritual master. We're trying our best. We are going to make many mistakes. With the fact that we are still here, we are already at fault. But we are trying our very best. And our spiritual master, our leader, will guide us properly because they know and they have been trained by their spiritual master. So they know what is to be done and what is not to be done, and we should learn from them very carefully. So I'll just read this last part and then we can close up. So the last part is the false realization of God. So it is said here, there was another claim to God consciousness that we have put before him for comment. He had mentioned the United Nations, and someone said there was now a Mayavad guru who conducts meditation sessions there. Srila Prabhupada's expository response came in typical fashion with cutting humor and shastric reference. That is another cheating, meditation. Whatever nonsense they are doing, you don't know. Nobody knows, that's all. If you become dumb, you have no enemy. Tavachcha shobate murko yavat kinchina bhashate. A rascal is beautiful so long he does not speak. So better meditation, don't speak. Nobody will detect you. This is going on. If you speak, then you'll be detected what you are. And if you sleep by posing meditation, then nobody will ask, what are you doing nonsense? This is meditation. Meditation is another cheating that Prahlad Maharaj has detected. Find out this verse, 7th canto. As Pusta Krishna Maharaj looked it up, I recalled a news article about the man. This Sri Chinmoy is supposed to be this resident guru at the United Nations. He did a practical demonstration of what he said a person who is in touch with God can be capable of doing if he allows himself to become an instrument of God. For 8 months he painted continually, and he produced 27,000 paintings. He said that this was proof that he was God realized. Srila Prabhupada waited to respond until the verse he wanted was read out. Pusta Krishna read the translation. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 10 prescribed methods on the path to liberation. To remain silent, not to speak to anyone, to observe vows, to amass all kinds of Vedic knowledge, to undergo austerities, to study the Vedas and other Vedic literatures, to execute the duties of Varna Ashram Dharma, to explain the Shastras, to stay in a solitary place, to chant mantras silently, to be absorbed in trance. These different methods for liberation are generally only a professional practice and means of livelihood. Prabhupada interrupted and repeated the last phrase, means of livelihood. Then Pusta Krishna continued, means of livelihood for those who have not conquered their senses. Because such persons are falsely proud, these procedures may not be successful. So again, within our ISKCON movement, we are not just everyone sitting in the temple room and meditating, eyes closed, and when you have when you have people coming and trying to seek spiritual knowledge, they cannot inquire because everybody is in their own samadhi. That is not how we preach. Right? Yes, there is meditation, it is required, but it is not the sole practice of what we do. We are preaching and we are practicing what our Guru has told us, what Srila Prabhupada has told us. And you speak Krishna consciousness. If you don't know anything, then Prabhupada says here that these people, when they don't have much knowledge, then they just meditate. But what are you meditating on? How are you meditating? Are you doing it correctly? Because that creates a whole other problem. And we'll just close up quickly. So on the last part of this diary entry, it says here, on his way into his bedroom to take rest tonight, he glanced over to a painting of baby Krishna carrying Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head, which was hanging on the wall. He stopped and stared intently for a few moments, his face softening with love and appreciation. Then as he lay in the darkness, he spoke fondly of how wonderful Krishna is, that he can enact such pastimes and still be the supreme Godhead. Because of our dullness, Prabhupada generally has to preach about the difference between the body and spirit, but now and then he reveals, just for a few moments, the intimacy of his realization of Lord Krishna's pastimes. It is so, every time you think, you just wonder what's going on in the spiritual world, and Prabhupada could see it and just wish we could see it. And one day we'll get there. But just keep meditating and listening to Srila Prabhupada's instructions and he will take us there. So, thank you very much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions or comments, just please raise your hand. We'll try and get a mic to you. And answer your question. Okay, if there's no questions, then we'll close up. Thank you, everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki